Welcome to the Milt Talk Legacy Builders podcast, the place where Milts can connect to one another to inspire, motivate, and collaborate to continue to build a strong and well-connected alumni association. I believe that Milton Hershey School rebranding is actually just getting started, and I want to be part of that journey. I think the best way to commemorate Milton and Catherine Hershey is to continue our own legacy that impacts the world as Milton Hershey so impacted us. I believe the level of extraordinary that each and every Milt carries within them is deeply underestimated, and this podcast will help in the journey to show off what Milts are really made of. I'm excited to get to know more Milts, more insight to their upbringing, what they're doing now to build their legacy and bring value to others, and what being a Milt really means to them. So today I'm talking to Mike Simmons, class of 2004. He's the founder of WIMS Consulting, that's WIMS Consulting, and also the co-founder of Aeolian virtual reality company. So without any further ado, Mike, I want you to take me way back before we get into your entrepreneurial journey. I want you to take me way back to Mike before Milton Hershey School and then Mike during Milton Hershey School. Tell me that story.
All right. Well, thanks for having me again. It's great to see you again after all these years, and
You too.
honored to be on. Grateful for the
Thank
opportunity
you.
to share my story and hopefully inspire some other Milts in their entrepreneurial journey. But all right, I'll start with. I was a Milt lifer. Like I was a meal bus baby at 5 years old. So
Wow.
I'll start with kind of how I got there. Let's see, single mother, and she would work crazy hours. And I grew up in Harrisburg. Born and raised in Harrisburg. I remember being about 4 years old. I was going to Camp Curtin preschool, and my mother would constantly be late picking me up because she'd work overnight. I'd be kind of left behind. I distinctly a few memories, and one was being left in the principal's office off and waiting for her to come get me, right? And I remember, and I used to literally, I'd be roaming around the streets of Harrisburg at 3 or 4 years old by myself or with my buddies, with my other pre-K friends, and it got to the point where they wouldn't be able to find me and stuff. And so eventually it got to the point where clearly something had to be done. And I remember now, in hindsight, I hear stories. My mother was deciding between Scotland or Milton Hershey. Thank God she chose Milton Hershey. Scotland would not have been nearly the same experience I had. So and then again, I went from pre-kindergarten on, and it just was the best thing that ever happened.
Yeah. So how was Milton Hershey life for you? Was it a struggle in the beginning? Did it change somewhere in the middle? Did you take advantage of a lot of the different stuff that they offer?
Mm-hmm. I had one of the best experiences ever, and I know I'm really lucky to be able to say that. I had mostly the beginning was early on. It was hard to remember a lot of it, so I do remember the transition from when I was really young being tough. But after that, I got really lucky. I had the best house parents ever, and I kept them through my whole time there. Mostly, I think
that is awesome.
Yeah, second or third grade, I think I got the Perlikowskis, and I stayed with them till graduation. And they were literally second.
Wow.
And they were my family. They became like blood, and and my father died when I was 6, shortly after I got to Milton Hershey, and so Mr. P was really the best stand-in father I could ever ask for, and so that changed everything because I had the best house parents, and again I know not everyone has the best house parents from that experience, and so I got to really that family unit early. They encouraged me, they enabled me, they really empowered me, and so I had just I took advantage of everything. I played every sport I could. I went after it academically. I did really well. My mother was very, very strict. So if I got to get a B, I was getting chewed out. So it helped that, she was on me. So I did not get the slack grade wise. And I really seized it and, seized this all throughout. I played, like I said, I try to get as involved as possible. Another thing that I had that I think was a little unfair compared to other people is I had, my sister who's a lot older, who's my mother too, another mother who's 15 years older than me. And so she moved out to California when I was young. And at first it was the most devastating thing ever. But then I got to visit her, Thanksgiving, Easter, and summer. And so just getting to see a different world while I was going through that experience from that young age on, completely transformed my whole world there. And so I feel like it's almost unfair in that I got this just kind of unique set of circumstances that helped my experience there just really blossom. And then I really realized though in high school of it kind of hit me. I remember of like realizing you have this unique advantage, like this crazy opportunity that like, you know, because I think you fight it for a long time.
Yes.
You're like lost, you know, you wish you went to public school, you wish you were home, even if it would be way worse circumstances. And you go through this real, you know, existential crisis when you're young.
Yeah.
And then when I finally made that shift, I think it was like ninth grade. I almost remember, not the moment, but like the period where I made the shift of like, I got to seize this and like make every single, you know, the best of every day.
Yeah.
I got to do great in school. I got to make sure I get to college and like, you know, really take advantage of this because it's such a rare opportunity. And I think that's when I really stopped feeling sorry for myself and more embraced it as like this crazy, unique opportunity that's just like once in a lifetime. And like, you know, you realize like it's a blessing and like you're here for a reason. And once I made that shift, it was like, you know, it was off to the races.
That's so awesome. It's so good that you had the opportunity to do that because most people fought it and they fought it. I was one of those people. I fought it as hard as I could. And then later in life, I was like, wow, why? Man, I should have taken more advantage of everything they offered, sports and just ski club and, you know, traveling and going abroad if you wanted, like so many different things that I myself, because I was fighting it so much, I wasn't taking advantage. So your story is so important because that's the kind of stuff I want to teach the kids there now is take advantage. You have no idea. You will not get this anywhere else. So just take advantage of this time and what you have right now.
It's so true. I think that's really what what happens to a lot of people is they fight it and they fight it. And again, I did for a long time too, in a certain sense. Like I've always behaved well, so I didn't get in trouble. So that helped make my experience a little bit easier. You know, I was, but I think, like you said, I mean, I don't know, I can't remember what moment it was, like what made, because again, I also realized a lot of people don't want to hear from grown-ups or from, you know, like they just don't want to hear, right? They think they know everything, or they, you know, a lot of kids are like that, or they just, you don't understand that kind of like mindset, right? And I wish I could remember that catalyst that was like, but I remember when I made that shift, like I said, you just got, you know, comfortable. And like I said, I was able to then change the whole experience. And I think if you're able to, it's almost got to be, like you said, someone outside the organization. Maybe it can't be a teacher, can't be, even though it might have been, right? I know it also might have easily been partly my house parents, right?
Yeah.
So that they definitely played a huge role. But I think if kids just kind of really just, okay, this is your life, like it is what it is, right? But like, this could be incredible if you let it.
Right.
If kids just made that shift and like just embraced it when they're there, oh my goodness, I hear a lot of that. When you go back, a lot of people wish they had, and the only way you can really do that is get them while they're there, right? Because a lot of the people that graduated, there's no going back. But
exactly.
You can influence the kids that are there, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's what I want to. And I've gone back most recent in 2017. So I've seen all the changes. I mean, the campus looks amazing. It looks like a spectacular college campus now. And I've seen the kids at a homecoming game, and even the kids just seem so much more expressive, very free, very happy, very much themselves. Just the sense of expression was so much more than back when we were there. So I see that the schools evolved a lot.
Yeah.
The kids have evolved so much. So I think now, and then even seeing, you know, some of these younger graduates that I've been talking to, younger than us, and all that they're doing now, like instantly straight out of, you know, school, they're already doing stuff within the community and college, and they're making a little name for themselves. And I think that plays a lot with, you know, they're really they're happier. You know, the school has evolved so much more. So the students like yourself, you had a much happier experience.
Right.
That caused them to want to take more advantage of what they're offering, and then instantly get out and do well right away. So I'm glad that I've seen that, and I know it's only going to get better, and especially with more feedback from us alumni, it's only going to get better. Yeah.
Yeah, I think and I think, I mean, again, I don't know what policies of like, again, I know social media can be the best thing in the world, or it can be the worst thing in the world, right? And kind of both. And I wonder how much they're exposed to that kind of thing, but almost the building a personal brand early, I feel like that's a thing now that it wasn't really when we were there, you know.
Absolutely.
And so I do think it's having a little bit more exposure to the outside world. Just obviously, even the internet is just a billion times faster and like more accessible than before. And I think that that's where, you know, you're kind of not in that bubble like a lot of people were before, which almost seeing the outside world is what, like I said, being able to go to California for me, like that gave me hope and like open my mind to a whole other thing that I don't think a lot of people get. And so even if it's seeing it through, you know, whatever medium in the meantime of getting there in person, I think those kind of things help just to like show you that, you know, this isn't where you're going to be forever, but like take this advantage and take advantage of this and get to, you know, use it to get to where you want to go, kind of thing, and telling those stories. And but like you said, I do think that there's just being a little bit happier there, I think makes a big difference. Where a lot of people, you don't dread it as much. And but yeah, I mean, again, I think things seem to be on a good positive path, but I don't know for sure from the day to day, but
I think so. From the outside looking in, it definitely looks like it. So after you graduated there, where did you go?
I went straight to Miami, University of Miami, and I was like the last year to get a full scholarship. I think my year was the last year, so I got another insanely lucky. Like, I was an expensive college. Definitely expensive, but
and would you study there?
So I went straight there, and I studied. I ended up getting a marketing and finance, you know, double major, and I got a minor in advertising, and that like just blew my mind in terms of a whole different world. I mean, I had a lot of fun. I definitely partied hard, but I, you know, still got good enough grades. My first semester was rough. My mom chewed me out, and like I said, I got right back on track. So after that, I did pretty well, and you know. And I was also doing like a fraternity and stuff. So it was rough. But after that, I kind of like got my feet under me, you know, met some great friends, and, you know, really learned a lot. And like I said, just at the same time, I think it, you know, took that lesson of like being mindful of being, you know, knowing I'm young. This is a very unique, you know, weird opportunity, like take advantage of it and try and just get the most experience and most fulfillment and most enjoyment. But at the same time, you know, learn the most valuable lessons I can as well. And so, that was just, I mean, a life-changing experience. I mean, I ended up meeting my wife now. I met freshman year, like, you know, I mean, I remember the moment I met her, literally, like, I remember the day, like, it was like love at first sight. I legit was like, I remember the first moment I met her was probably a month after getting there, maybe less. And I remember, like, that experience was kind of wild. And so, like, all these years later, you know, we
so awesome.
Dated a little in college, broke up, and I know I'm skipping steps, but
that's okay.
Anyway, it was great for sure.
So you guys met each other right when you got there, like a month after you got there, and then you dated a little bit, and then
I didn't date. I didn't date her for years, actually, till my senior year.
Okay,
I had a crush on her for a couple of years, and I chased her for a long time. I got turned down a billion times. I got called delusional more times than I can count. I got definitely shot down.
That's awesome. So. Kept going.
Exactly. I couldn't take no for an answer for sure.
Persistence is key.
Exactly. Especially with for sure with relationships. In some cases, not always, but I guess it worked out for me at least.
That's awesome. So then you graduated there, and then what?
So I stayed, and I got lucky because I graduated in 2008. So the world, I mean, shit hit the fan. Like, I mean, obviously it was nuts. I was lucky that I got it. So I did 4.5 years actually too, and I stayed an extra semester to get the finance degree. And so I had an internship though that whole fall, like that 4.5 fall semester. And so at an accounting firm, and even that whole story was like kind of crazy. I almost skipped it because I was about to go on spring break, and like I was, you know, studying for finals, and I was like pulling all-nighters, and I went back to research the company, and I didn't see the job description that I had applied for this internship. So I was like, did I make a mistake? Am I applying for accounting when and ended up still going. I was like, just show up, get the interview, like get it done, right? You know what I mean? It'll work itself out. So I kind of found out I wasn't mistaken. I just, they hadn't, you know, posted it in the same place I was looking anyway. And so I was, you know, I even though being, like I said, tired and like being off to Vegas for spring break like that, like afternoon, I nailed the interview, did really well. And again, I you know, rallied and so I was an intern there through the summer and through the fall. And so while I was still finishing up school. And so, like I said, the market started to turn through all of this. And so I was doing a marketing internship for this firm, but I knew I wanted to, you know, part of me wanted to go into finance, and they had a sister company that was more hedge fund administration and private equity like administration. So like that's kind of where I wanted to potentially pivot.
Yeah.
Outside of this internship, but things changed, and obviously, and so like I remember writing a letter, telling them, I'm interested in full-time position. I'd love to stay here. I know things are crazy right now, but like, so I had, at that point been there for about six to 9 months, I think, and like built good relationships and was busting my butt, to really prove myself. And so, then I ended up getting lucky. Like I got a full-time job offer, and I remember this, and this firm had been around for like 50 years. And like they had, probably 350 people, never fired anyone in 50 years.
Wow.
And right after I got in, they had let like 30 people go because of 08.
Yeah.
And so I was lucky. I just made it. I was literally like on the edge because I was the last person hired. Usually that's the first person to get fired. Yeah. And I guess my salary was low enough, and like, people thought I had enough upside and was, just polite and, hardworking, that I just happened to get lucky. And like, so I stayed there, and it ended up like, again, being another life-changing thing of right time, right place of that. Just this firm was treated me incredibly well. Won best place to work in Florida every year.
That's
right.
awesome.
Like every year they are South Florida, and they treated people great. They allowed me to grow and learn and like, take chances. And, so I was there for about 7, 8 years. And by the end, I kind of was able to invent my own job out of this thing and really add value and get creative with what I did. Yeah. And it was really unique in that way. And again, if I'd gone into finance, I'd hate it. Like I'm way more of a people person than a spreadsheet person. I've learned that about myself. So it's like I said, everything kind of worked out. So like while 08 was terrible for a lot of people, for me, it ended up like pointing me in the direction I needed to go. Right. And I mean, I'm a man of faith, so I just feel like that was there the whole time. Right? Like pointing me in the direction, even though my behavior wasn't always aligned. Right. It got me back on track later on down the road. So he or she, I guess, but anyway, So anyway, so like I said, from school, I stayed in Miami, and stayed with this job, like I said, and which became my career. And I just like blossomed. I mean, I said yes to everything. I read this book, 2 books that changed my life that I'd recommend to a lot of people, by the way. I'm a bit of a nerd and read a lot. One was Never Eat Alone by Keith Ferrazzi. And it's just from, showed me the power of networking and building relationships, which everything else comes from that. And like,
absolutely.
I mean, connecting with people, empathizing with them, learning what motivates them, and really solving their problems, that kind of stuff. Like whatever you do day to day, like if you're able to be good at that, like, I mean, people will move mountains for you.
Yep.
And another one that I read was Linchpin by a guy, Seth Godin. And it like rocked my world too, because basically what he tells you is like, you need to be indispensable and valuable at your company, right? And so that's where I started doing, I literally worked, I mean, the amount of overtime I put in was, probably one of the highest in the whole company, even though I made about 5%. Because like I was, and so one thing that stuck with me too, and how this book kind of led me to break through this, was a lot of the accountants and auditors would, kind of make comments that I was like a cost center for this firm, right? Marketing's an expense. It barely drives anything, like while they're making money, billable hours for clients and all. And so that bothered me in a lot of ways. So I was like, I need to find ways to reinvent my job, to add value, to bring in revenue, to, bring in awareness, to bring in referrals, to bring in clients, to, I was even volunteering to do the proposals that led to, to us getting more revenue, things like that. So it really reshaped the way I looked at things, and that I'm like, I need to add value, bring in, at least influence the top line as much as possible. Yeah. So I'm not looked at as a cost center where when times are hard, it's easy to get rid of. Yeah. And that book kind of helped me realize, kind of just put a like, a phrase to it, and like, a mission to it of like, you need to be a linchpin, right? And so you need to be so good that they can't get rid of you. And like, you need to be so good that they have to, no choice but to promote you. And like I said, I was putting in crazy overtime, and I started going to networking events, and I started volunteering for boards. And I was, the youngest person ever in the history of the Greater Miami Chamber of Commerce board, right? I was like 20, I want to say 25. And I was like legit on the board of directors. And
so
like, often just showing up, volunteering, doing things no one else wanted to do. And so, I just kind of like built this whole awesome career there.
Yeah, that's such grit. Most people don't have that type of grit, that type of extra thinking, going the extra mile, you know,
Mm-hmm.
so that you're looked at as more valuable than you are as just a consumer of their time and money.
Right.
And most people, yeah, they won't even think that way, to be like, oh, they'll just kind of live in that fear of, are they gonna lay me off, or are they not gonna lay me off, instead
Right.
of just, hey, what can I do about it to make sure that I don't end up, you know, this type of statistic. That's
Yeah, and I
so
think
good.
the key is just to bury your ego and to
Yeah,
say yes to everything. I mean, I was doing, like I said, I was almost like would get excited when people, you know, in my department or otherwise would say no to certain things, or they had to like leave early for whatever, right? And you know, so I would, and again, I'd sometimes go to like these networking events, happy hour, and like come back and like
yeah,
put more hours in. I'd come in
so
at 6
awesome.
and like, and I would do whatever it took. And so and I still to this day, like years later, now, you know, again, I could have a little bit of an ego. Don't get me wrong. I'm not like the most
Yeah,
successful, like over the top, but I could like, you know, I've at least done enough that I could easily scoff at certain tasks. But to
yeah,
this day, I'm still doing whatever it takes, whatever a client asks, whatever, like,
yeah.
you know, whatever simple
Awesome.
thing that may seem insignificant to a lot of people. If I can make a client, now obviously there's a challenge of like how much of that scales, but like
Yeah,
I'm for the most part still going to say yes and figure it out. And like
yeah,
to this day, no matter what it is, right? Reformatting a freaking document, like
yeah,
whatever. There's
yeah,
nothing that I won't do.
yeah,
Um, to still just always be valuable, right? And to make
right.
someone's life easier. I think
Yeah.
that's the one way you guarantee you're going to be all right.
Yeah. And that's such a good quality and characteristic in an entrepreneur, is that humility to say, you know what, there, I'm a yes man, absolutely. Because through
Yeah.
yes, probably the simplest little things could all of a sudden birth an opportunity you didn't even know was going to happen, just by saying yes to something simple.
Oh yeah. And that's like my whole life and career for sure. And that I realized too, and again, don't get me wrong, plenty of times my ego would start to creep up and like, I'd have to like, you know, kind of realize, there's a lot of things I would do that I wouldn't get credit for example, but then I realized, and there's another book that, and in a phrase that talks about this, but essentially you need to enable, and again, this is sometimes hard, especially when you're young, right? When you want credit
Yeah.
for things because you don't
Right.
know. When you basically make your boss or manager or whatever look really good and look better, and like when you make them be a rock star, and even if you don't get the credit on at that moment, if you continue to do that, it's
Yeah.
going to come back around. And so like
Absolutely.
any aspiring entrepreneurs or even people in their career, like just make your whoever you report to, make them look good and make them be
Yeah.
absolutely, like, make them the star, and you'll eventually, your
Yeah.
talent and your skills will show, and
Yeah.
people will notice.
And it's also, it's part of being a leader too. And I think that same quality goes hand in hand with, you know, making your whoever it is that you're reporting to look good, but then now you're in a position yourself of being the owner and being the leader, and now you probably have that same quality in giving your team all of the, you just,
Yes, yes, yes.
earlier when we were talking, you were like, it's really my team that brings so much. I mean, I'm the visionary, and then they go and make it happen for me. And that is like the quality of a leader right
Right.
there. You're giving off that recognition and credibility to someone else, or that credit to someone else, instead of just consuming it yourself. That's so like it, that's the higher level thought process. And you get that. I see that you're getting that through these books you're consuming.
Right. I'm trying to get better at it because it can be hard sometimes. Because
Yeah.
obviously I've still got ego that creeps up, and like I still
Yeah.
want to be, And then the other thing is like, right, because like being an entrepreneur, you have to self-promote a bit, right? You have to
Yeah.
like to your own horn, because otherwise no one
Yeah.
else will. So like I
Right.
struggle with that. How much is bragging versus humble bragging versus like taking credit versus like
Yeah.
showing the world I'm so great and like take notice, and like so
Yeah.
it's such a challenge of like,
Yeah. It's a
and I
fine line.
struggle,
Yeah.
right? So I try and live my life publicly in like a lot of things, and again, I don't always show the negative as much as I probably should, but like it's such a contradiction of like,
Yeah.
and I do think going forward, I definitely, it's important, I think, for everyone to be mindful of, right, give your superior the credit, but then also your team, when you are the superior, or even when you're in the middle, give
Yeah.
the credit, pass credit downhill, right?
Right.
Also, and bring people up and lift people up, and enable them to become, future leaders
Yeah.
and things like that. So it's something, like I said, I'm always mindful of. I sometimes slip up. I'm not always perfect, but
Yeah.
I do think it's something that sticks with you. And like I said, it's one of those things I wish I kind of was better about even younger.
Yeah.
As I started to get these accolades and stuff, I do remember, like in Miami, especially, I did get a bit of an ego, and that definitely you know, that's definitely something that, again, I wish I could have, you know, I look back sometimes a little bit embarrassed. Like I said, I wasn't always bad though, but you know, it's something that I remember wishing I like, you know, knew better back then.
Yeah. I think that happens to a lot of us. 2020 is, or hindsight's always 2020, you
Right.
know, but you live, you learn. And I think a lot of that ego that you have, I don't think it comes from like a prideful area, or like, I think it actually comes from a place of you kind of deserve it because you worked your freaking ass off, and you know yourself, and you know the level of grit that you have. So I don't think the ego comes from a bad place. I think it comes from a place of, yeah, you put in the damn work behind it to be able to acquire this ego that you have. But then you have the balance of knowing that I got to walk the fine line, you know?
Right. Yeah. I'm a work in progress for sure, but I
aren't we all? So after those 7 or 8 years at that company, what was then your transition from there?
All right. So, as I mentioned, my wife now, we were, you know, dating my senior year. She ended up moving to Wilmington, North Carolina. She was a reporter, like a TV reporter. So she had to go to a bit smaller market. So we broke up only because of that. Right.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, you know, the moment I kind of was just like, I got to let this girl go or else I'm going to ruin it, you know?
Yeah.
Or it's going to end badly or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Especially being in our, you know, being 22, 23. And so, you know, I was, again, just, I mean, single in Miami, having a blast. And then there was there was a wedding, a friend of ours, mutual friend, like one of her best friends in Miami. And she was, you know, one of the bridesmaids, and she was coming back. And so she had had a boyfriend for a few years. And like, you know, so I kind of was like, I'd always, you know, throughout the years, text her, message her, whatever, you know, I miss you kind of thing. Cause I always knew she was the one. I was single the whole time we broke up. So like, I was never going to get another relationship. I just kind of knew. And I'd always tell her we're going to be married one day. Again, more delusionals even after we dated the first time. It'll never happen, this and that, right? And I was just like, I'm telling you, it's going to work. And so she ended up coming to Miami for a wedding. And so, like I said, I ended up going to. And so obviously we spent, you know, and she had, like, you know, been single for a few months at that point. She moved here to Charlotte. And it was this weekend, right? And I hadn't seen her really in, I can't remember, a year or two, maybe more. Yeah. But either way, we hadn't seen each other, like, you know, much, right, over years. And so that weekend, I just remember, you know, we kind of like, you know, almost like reconnected in a sense. And like, I remember, I literally told her, like, that weekend, I was like, if I gotta, like, whatever it takes, I want to be with you. If I gotta move and, you know, move to Charlotte, like, I'm gonna do it. And so I remember, like, pretty much making up my mind from Friday to Sunday, I'm moving to Charlotte. And like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna pull it off. And I mean, and I was like Mr. Miami. Like, I mean, my career was blowing up, taking off. Like, I mean, I was crushing it. But at the same time, I was partying too much. And I was like, you know, in my 20s in Miami, I was like living a little reckless too. I wasn't like all perfect, believe me.
Right.
Like, my upside was great, but like I was a little like wild. So again, it was God, like, you know, just steering me in the right direction. But so I kind of, like I said, but I loved my life. I loved my job. I loved my, you know, my lifestyle. I had a blast. I mean, I had, you know, a ton of great friends and all of that. And but I just knew, like, something just told me, like, you know, whatever it takes. And I'm sure I could have got her to move to Miami, kind of thing. You know what I mean? I know she would have if I had pushed it. But I just kind of, like, something was pushing me to, like, all right, you've had your fun. You're going to be able to come back later, but you got to go get your shit together. Like, you got to go, like, grow up. And, like, you know, at this point, I'm like 27, 28. And, like, I'm still living like I'm 22 in a lot of ways. Yeah. And so I just kind of, like, knew I had to, like, get out of Dodge to, like, really find myself and, like, get back on track. And so like I said, you know, I kind of, like, started talking to her. Like, I was like, I know this is nuts, but, like, I you know, it's something, like, I want to throw out there. And so, like, she was actually receptive to it right away, even, like, you know, because, like I said, there was always something there. Like, and I remember I ended up going to visit her a couple weeks later. Or no, excuse me, I was going to a conference in San Francisco, and for Dreamforce, for Salesforce, and we talked about that a little bit before. And so on my way back, they were offering a voucher for a flight, or for the wait for the next flight, and you get $500 voucher. So I literally spent the night, 24 hours in San Francisco airport, so I get a free voucher. Because at that point, I'm making money, but, like, I'm still, like, you know, at the same time, I was blowing a lot too. And I remember I spent 24 hours in the airport, came back a day late just so I can get a free voucher so I can go see her. Oh. And I literally spent the night in the airport, like, was there all day. Wow. Got this voucher, like, booked my trip, and went to go visit her, like, probably a week and a half after I got back, like, for the weekend. And then California in December, like around Christmas time. This is like all from like October, November, December kind of thing. And then Christmas, I'm out in California with my sister and you know, like for Christmas and, you know, visiting them. And we're going to the airport and, you know, she's like told me some story, my sister, and we're like going to go pick someone up. And so it ends up being her. Like she bought her a ticket, surprised, we had no idea, like complete surprise, and flew her out to California.
What a great big sister.
Yeah, right. I know it was wild, and she like knew this girl was like my future wife too.
Yeah,
so she was conspiring, but and so anyway, so like we at that point, like, and this was Christmas. Like I said, I kind of told my company, I'm like, look, I'm doing this. This is nuts, but I'm moving, and you know, can you give me a few months to like get my, you know, to figure it out, what I'm gonna do, and like make a plan. Because this was out of left field, spontaneous. I'm like, I'm just moving to this new city. Yeah. No job lined up, nothing lined up, right? I mean, I'm just winging it, right?
Yeah.
And so the next 3 months, like I said, and they actually said yes. I had 3 months to like, you know, still work, still got paid, still, you know, and then transition. And I started my firm then while I was doing it. And I'd always wanted to be an entrepreneur, but like, you know, because again, it's something I always was like intriguing to me. So I started my firm, but I remember I think I did one job interview. And that was it. And it was another sister firm to my accounting firm, so another accounting firm. And for a similar role to what I was doing, but in Charlotte. And they ended up giving it to a guy who was like 40s, you know, had a book of business, which I didn't in Charlotte. And had been around for a while. So like lived in Charlotte. So like he knew people there and like,
that was
which was the right choice. So that was it. And I was like, screw it. This is a sign. And again, I probably should have applied for more jobs, but I'm glad I didn't. And so I started my firm. And like I said, I kind of was gearing up, you know, over those 3 months, doing my job still, working my ass off at the firm, and then preparing to move. And in March, I moved up. And like I said, didn't know anyone except, you know, my girlfriend, who's now my wife. And I had a couple other buddies that I knew from college. And I was like, I didn't know anybody. So I started over, new city, entirely, and new company without knowing any prospects or knowing anybody in town. So like one of those is already enough. Two at the same time was insane. And I had enough money to like, I mean, I had maybe 2 months of a runway. Because like obviously everything with moving and this and that. I had like no runway, no real like plan. I was like winging. I was just like, going back to the grit thing. I was just like, I'm gonna figure it out because I have no and I did. And like ever since then, I've been literally just working my face off every day, despite tons of uncertainty. I mean, the first 2 years were a lot of overdraft fees, a lot of I don't know how I'm gonna pay my rent this month, and then money would fall out of the sky the next day. Like, you know, it literally was just one misstep and like, but at the same time, a few good things. And, you know, this just very clunky path over the first 2-3 years to building a business. And it was ugly. I had a lot of, you know, luckily I was still able to have some clients in Miami from relationships there. That's what got me jumped off, you know, from relationships that I built over the years from networking and stuff. And so I have Miami clients. So I'd still go back to visit and, you know, nurture those. And then, you know, I was using sites like Upwork or Freelancer or things like that to supplement too. And then really just like LinkedIn and my network. And, but again, it was ugly in the beginning.
Yeah.
Really ugly.
Yeah. And, it's a like incredulous journey, honestly. Most people don't make it through in entrepreneurship because it stretches the hell out of you. It challenges you so much. I mean, with me, I think I started entrepreneurship in 2008, and I probably wanted to quit 5,000 times.
Oh, easy.
So grateful I didn't, but there are so many times I'm just like, what the fuck am I doing? Is this really what I do? You know, you just get to that point, but then once you get and then the next day the money falls out of the sky, and you're like, I'm so glad I didn't stop.
Right. It's so true.
Unreal. Yeah. So tell me, give me like an example of during that time, like those really hard first 2 or 3 years. What was an example of like the couple of clients that kept you afloat? What did you do to have those clients? What did you do for them?
Yeah, of course. So, and one, I was lucky, like my girlfriend at the time supported me and stuck with me because I wouldn't have blamed her for kicking me out and like dumping me and like, you know, like, because it was, like I said, it was rough. I'd always like you know, I was very creative and
Yeah.
resourceful. So I'd always find ways to still get us a good date night often, you
Yeah.
know, and things like that. I'd always find ways to get the bills paid, right? I was very
Yeah.
creative and like resourceful. But so I'd always, and like looking back, I'm like, how the hell did I pull this off? I mean, you know, like, like, but I always would find ways to make it at least fun along the journey. And she always kind of believed in me. And like, so she didn't give me, you know, there was a couple maybe arguments, but not much. She was
Yeah.
very like patient and believed in me. And like that was
So
invaluable.
awesome.
Like that really pushed me forward. But so my first client and it's still a client today, was a company, a commercial real estate firm in Miami. And so the CMO, she's a dear friend, Diana Puchar is her name. She was actually worked for the Chamber of Commerce when I was on the board there. So we built a really good relationship. And so she took this job, and like part of it, she, you know, she's like saying like, when you kind of made a move like that, kind of like inspired me to make this jump, even though it was scary. And like, so we always just had this bond, right? We're to this, like I said, to this day, we're great friends.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's helping them put together their CRM program and customize it. And so building out their system to like help them sell and keep track of their sales and their prospects and things like that. I was building a lot of websites, and in the beginning I was not very great at it, but I got better, of course. And I did a ton of like self-study, right? Like that's also what, like when I started doing the CRM thing, there was another thing at my old firm at Kaufman Ross, the accounting firm, that I volunteered to do, and then I went crazy learning how to do it, right? I would take classes, I went to conferences, I, you know, read through a ton of like, you know, of the forums and things like that, and like just
totally
reached out to
investing
anyone.
in yourself.
Yeah, I taught myself how to do a lot of stuff. And so I was doing that a lot for my firm too, of like teaching myself how to build websites, teaching myself how to get better at these CRM programs, teaching myself how to do a lot of different things. And then also I was doing things I did at my old firm, but for different businesses. So like I also did a lot of the stuff I did internally there for other companies. So I also had a lot of experience too. So it wasn't like I was like a total amateur at a lot of this stuff. But to continue to get better, I had to like constantly learn. So like I said, I was hustling with reaching out to anyone and everyone in terms of, you know, all my relationships, whoever could refer me business, whoever owned their own business, whoever, you know, a ton of social media, sharing, even just, you'd be surprised. I get so much, people still to this day, like, I see all over social media. I'm like, a lot of what I do, like I do a lot of original stuff, but like, if you just share Inc. and Entrepreneur, you know, magazine articles and like, you know, TechCrunch or like, you know, whatever, SBA, that kind of stuff, like share those resources, like that's enough where people see your name, you see what you're doing, and like you're incepted in their brain. So like a lot of us doing is just sharing other people's stuff. Continuously. And like, so it really, I was just always burning people's brain because they'd always see my name, even though it's Entrepreneur's article, they'd see Mike Simmons and, you know, and they, so that over a period of time really stacked up. And, so a lot of it was, like I said, relationships. I remember going to my old mentor, who I still talk to often, and I did some projects for my old firm too. And so like, you know, I'd ask him, you know, who can you refer me to? So I was doing, you know, I started doing commercial real estate, did a few accounting firm projects. I did some projects with my in-laws. They own an aviation business where they're airplane brokers. More a little bit charity in the beginning, but also, you know, like I did help out too.
Absolutely.
A lot of it was, like I said, too, the going after projects like on Upwork, right? Because they'll post, Upwork's, for example, for people that don't know, it's a site that they post, they as in companies or businesses or individuals post, I need a logo, I need a website, I need a proposal written, I need 3 blog posts, whatever, right? And so you bid on them and you do a proposal and you bid for certain your hourly rate or a project fee, what have you. So I do a ton of that. So I just crank out proposals a lot. And again, I just reached out to anyone I knew that, like I said, if I saw someone saying I need a website on Facebook, I'd jump on, you know, hey, I can do that for you. So it was a ton of hustle, in the beginning, of just like trying to be as opportunistic as possible. And the other thing I do, and I recommend this to everybody, because again, this adds up. So many people just don't do it. They don't want to do it. I don't know why, but I just went to a ton of networking events too. And like, I'm like, all right, I built my huge network in Miami where I knew everyone from showing up. So I started doing that here. I'm like, all right, I started with the Charlotte Chamber of Commerce, which I then became on the board for a couple years later. That was huge for credibility and relationships. So I just kind of told them, hey, I ran this group in Miami, right? And I'm the, you know, I was the chair, and like, you know, but I'm like, I know I'm new here. I don't know anyone. I will set chairs up for an event. Like I will literally clean up, you know, cups and plates afterwards. I'll do whatever to get involved. And like I said, had to really swallow that ego again.
Yeah.
And I remember literally there's a group here called Pitch Breakfast that would, they do meet once a month. Startups will pitch their idea about, to like, and basically in an educational setting where investors or entrepreneurs will kind of give them feedback and help them improve, right? But it's really well-run group. A lot of people would attend. And so I was like volunteering on that, again, setting up chairs in the morning. It was like 7 a.m. once a month. I'd set up chairs even though I'm like, like I said, I had this incredible career, but no one in Charlotte knew I was or cared, right?
Right.
So I had to just really go to events, meet people, build relationships. And then I just showed up enough that at this point, 6 years later, I've got a pretty close network to like I had in Miami, but it just took reps of finally people see me there 6 times, 7 times. Like, they're like, all right, you're someone that,
right.
What do you do again? Like, all right, I've seen you here a lot. How can I help? What are you looking for? What type of business? And,
That's so awesome.
Kind of all of those things collectively.
Yes.
That's how I built it.
They compound. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow. That is grit. That is the hard work. That's the legwork not a lot of people can handle. So now you're the business WIMS Consulting. Tell me the whole list. Tell everyone the whole list, the whole rundown of what that company handles. What you pump out.
We do, again, still full service marketing and sales agency. And so we still build websites and we do analytics, web, data analytics. We do the CRM still. I do a ton of CRM implementations. Salesforce, HubSpot, Zoho are like the big 3, and but a few others too. So really we automate and systematize these, sales and marketing process. So we'll do content marketing, and every client and project's a little bit different. So some will just do CRM, some will do a website, some will do, and then, transition the website into the CRM and things like that. We'll help create, lead generation campaigns, email campaigns, help people with their sales script. Like, the whole soup to nuts of whatever they need, help them write proposals. We'll do rebrands, all that kind of stuff, right? Help businesses. And we help businesses from startups, like pre-revenue startups, although I do a little bit less of those than I used to, but we still do them. All the way through billion-dollar companies. Like, we've worked on massive, huge companies, and our preferred vendors for like I said, kind of across from 0 revenue to multiple billions of revenue and everything in between. And so we do mostly commercial real estate, accounting, law firms, mostly professional services, like the niche, but also restaurants, manufacturing.
Wow, that is
I've got a new client, which is awesome in Charlotte. It's like the official esports team. Co-working spaces, like we do a ton of nonprofit work in those types of engagements, because I've been on boards, and like I have a huge, obviously through Mill and Hershey, like that sense of philanthropy is always, so I'll do basically 50-50, 50% of our normal rate and 50% in-kind donation kind of thing. So like we'll do twice the work for half kind of the cash, and then at the same time go above and beyond in terms of volunteering, spreading the word, things like that. We do a lot of nonprofit. And then I'm also rolling out a campaign, 2 different ones. Like, one is really focused on restaurants and breweries, and helping them get, especially because of, one, we're doing this as it is, help them get more digital and be more mindful of like CRM and systematizing their operations from a sales and marketing perspective. And then obviously this COVID crisis happened, like, is even more urgent for that.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then, so and it's a different brand, but it's my company. It's called Leaderboard, LDR, BRD is like, and it's like just a sub-brand because it's a different messaging, and so it's a different website, stuff like that. And then really the big campaign we're launching, I've been like working on for 6 months now, is like, and it's really something I'm like think is going to make a big impact in terms of going forward, is specific product, and almost like let's call it a product, but like a service offering for private equity funds, venture capital, and like family office funds, that basically we will bring everything in-house from the marketing and sales, but also even the accounting and finance, so like CFO function, controller, bookkeeping, taxes, to a point. And like part of it's through partnerships, part of it's through like our organization, and basically give them like an easy button to, 1, refer their portfolio companies to, but then 2, for their fund themselves to, manage their investor relations, to do their own websites. A lot of them don't have great websites or pitch decks and things like that, right? They just have good relationships, and some of them do have really well-run portfolio companies, but at least being kind of a one-stop shop that's consolidated and like all in, under one roof, and help them basically improve, the valuations of their companies, improve, the growth and scaling of them, and then, which eventually, kind of reverts back to their own management team and their investors. So that's kind of something I'm excited about. And, the other thing that we're doing is we're working with full-blown software and platform developments where, we've got big partners that will do huge enterprise level rollouts, which I wouldn't do before because it'd be, me and a small team. So now we've partnered with different firms that like we can do literally like $1 million Salesforce implementations and things like that. And so I'm really trying to focus more on scaling and getting and growing into a small time, family kind of type company of that, 1 to 5 and then billion into a massive organization. It's really like the focus in terms of the next 2020 to 2030.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that you have such a clear vision of what you want next in the next 2030, because that's everything. Yeah. Clarity and vision is everything. It's like the flashlight to your future.
For sure. Now the implementation is really hard, but like, right. And I've learned that the hard way again, because it's like, you think you get good at one thing and like, I'm now stressing myself so thin and like learning new things. And like I said, that ego is getting beat down again. And like operating and managing people and scaling is a whole other beast. And like everyone wants success. And it's like, do you know what challenges success brings? Like success makes life harder, not easier. Like everyone thinks like, oh, I made it, I can coast. Like, no, my life is way harder now than it's ever been. It's only gonna get harder tomorrow. And like, but I'm cool then. I'm embracing it and running towards that. And I don't think a lot of people realize that like getting better and getting more successful, like it takes everything you have and doesn't make things easier at all.
You have to keep growing. You have to keep evolving yourself as a person in order to reach the next level of what's expected of you. I think I saw a meme of that said like every new thing that you go through is going to need a new version of you. So you're especially as an entrepreneur and a leader of other people, you're constantly reinventing yourself. So it's constantly shedding the old and figuring out the new. It's a constant work in process for sure.
For sure. I digress to like just being by myself a lot of times. Like even though I have people that need me and need me to manage them and give them advice, I sometimes digress to like going into my own hole and like being, just like looking out for me. And it's not looking out for me, but like doing my own thing. And like I was back when I was a startup of one kind of thing, a company of one. And I sometimes found myself going back in those bad habits. So I've all been, learning as much as possible on leadership and scaling and like really trying to improve on those qualities, like you said, because I realized to get to where I'm going, I got to be a completely different person. You got to like, there's a quote I like that's called like being fit for service. And you got to be, so I'm like working out harder, meditating more, like being more mindful, like all that, eating healthier. Cause like, you got to be sharp and disciplined. And like, you can't be as spontaneous as I used to be, which worked from getting meets from year 1 to 5. And, so things like that I'm trying to apply. And then with my other company, it's a whole other set of challenges too, because we're doing insane. We're like, the clients we're working with are like absolutely mind-boggling. I still pinch myself all the time. Like with this augmented reality, virtual reality company, we're working with the government, like Department of Defense. And so I can really say, but like cool, crazy, innovative stuff.
Wow. I was so curious about that, because that virtual reality is like the next levels of where companies, products, like experiences are all going. I think Amazon made a show about it. I don't really watch TV or series or any of that shit, but I think I happened to see some sort of advertisement where they're making a series about when you pass away. I think it's called like Download or Upload or something like that.
Yes. I haven't watched the show yet, but I saw them.
Yeah, but it's something about virtual reality and how you create your heaven or something like that. But it just goes to show that even Hollywood knows that that's where technology is heading next. So for you already dabbling in it is genius.
We started it a few years early, I think, but now the market is like roaring, like especially this time right now is making it even more prevalent. And so it's interesting. Actually, I had a conversation. I know this might be a little proprietary with you're going to be on with Alfonso on through the series. And so we had talked about doing some potential. Like I said, this is really early when like the tech wasn't quite as good yet. But, and at this point, this exists enough now that, like I said, I'm not giving away anything because I think it was an idea we both had together, Alfonso and Nathan. So he's a therapist, right? So like being able to put in a room with you, right? You being a patient and going to therapy, your mother who passed away 10 years ago, your father, or like a hologram of them based on if
Wow.
you've got pictures or voice recording, even more
Wow.
so.
Wow.
And you can, even if it's just a still image, but of like, that looks real,
Right.
you be able to heal and like being able to talk to them and get out, say things to them that you weren't able to say. Even
Right.
that simple thing of them being there motionless, let alone
Yeah.
like that show Upload,
Yeah.
where they're like to life and talking and like, you know, with
Right.
the mannerisms and gestures, which we will get to, by the way.
Yes,
For
I
sure.
believe it.
But even that type of a thing, like it can have a tremendous impact in your day-to-day life because it brings,
Absolutely.
you know, brings things to life. And so we're doing that vertical. And then the two other ones we're doing is healthcare. And so like, that's why, you know, we had the discussion, and then commercial real estate. And so being able to walk through a building before it exists, before its shovel hits the ground, to sell investors, to sell tenants, that kind of thing is something we're building
Wow.
and
How
growing. And then,
cool.
yeah, and then we worked with Mayo Clinic and
Wow.
another firm, Atrium Health, which is a $1 billion healthcare company here in Charlotte.
Yeah.
I'm hoping to close another one. I'll just say it. I'm going to put it out there, manifest it.
Yes.
Duke's College of Health, Duke
Wow.
University. And so like that's another one I'm chasing right now. And so we've been like work with billion-dollar institutions, and like just from being persistent, like both, like between both of the, you know, the government and the healthcare, we chased those deals for 2 years, literally.
Wow.
Spent a bunch of our own money, like, you know, just to get these contracts done and in the door. Like it was an insane grind. And
Wow.
like you keep thinking you're at the finish line, you know, and
Yeah.
like a lot of this, when you're a startup, you're not making, you know, much. Like I wasn't making much money doing all this, but I just believed in it. And it
Yeah.
was, you know, like I said, now that gets paying off finally.
Right.
And but it was like one of those things where we were a little early, and then, you know, we were going after deals that like most people didn't want to mess with, because
Right.
not many people will chase a deal for 2 years without making a cent, right?
Right. Exactly.
Nobody does that. They're
Yeah.
like, and it's like there's a quote like, you know, I think it's Tim Ferriss. This guy, you know, he's like, everyone's going for singles, right? No one's going to hit the home run.
Right.
Everyone wants the easy wins, so they're all
Yeah,
chasing.
just
So
get
it's a
on
ton
base.
of competition,
Yeah.
but there's not much competition going for home runs. And it's like
Right.
that's why we've got some of these deals, and like we just figured it out, made it work. You know, we raised
So
money
good. Yeah.
to get there, but anyway.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at, like going forward. I'm trying to grow and scale and
I
get
love
crazy
that.
with it.
Yeah. And I love that you said, you know, you guys were a little bit early, because it's not even that you were you were thinking way beyond where everybody else was still trying to figure out. But you,
Right.
and that's what you had said earlier, you sometimes have to give the vision to your team and say, hey, this is what I want to do, and then the team kind of gives the pushback like, this seems impossible, but then you're like, I think you could do it, you'll figure it out. And
Right.
then 2 days later they go and they figure it out.
Right.
It's
Right.
the same thing. Like you saw the virtual reality thing, you knew it was going to come to exist. You guys were just a little bit before everybody else caught on to it.
Right.
But that's a great thing. That's a
I
great
agree.
thing. Yeah.
And it's still early. We're like a lot of times freaking out that like we're gonna lose our being early. And I think it's still at this point still really early. And like there's still not a lot of people, there's still an insane amount of opportunity. So if you're like, you know, and I mean same thing for artificial intelligence, for a lot of different things, right? I mean, if anyone's out there got like that thinks that they got an idea in that space, like go after it, because I mean, I'm still selling and people on CRMs, which have been around for 20 years. Like to me, it's like every business should have one. It's like a foregone conclusion. And people still don't have that.
Yeah.
It's like people still run their pipeline through Google Sheets, and I get it.
Right.
And a lot of people do. And like, and that even big companies, right? Mm-hmm. If you saw a construction company, how they keep their books, for example. So like it's papers and like chaos. So you may think there's not much opportunity in a place. But there's still so much. I mean, it's still nuts. I mean, it's absolutely, like I said, and it's, and, you know, even if you're a little early, if you can stick it out, and, you know, the market will come about, you know, and will come, you know, will mature. It doesn't always, right? Sometimes it doesn't work out that way. But I think it's one of those things where even if people think, you know, they missed out on certain things, like even, you know, there's a billion podcasts, but start a podcast. Like, who cares? Like, start a website. If you haven't done a website, there's a billion more websites made from today on, right? Even though you may think it's old school or a blog, even like, none of this stuff is like, there's always a reason to keep doing it and to just like plant the flag and like, you know, go after it. So now I get to, not many people are built like me to, like I said, be that type of patient, that kind of sick level work ethic.
But persistence,
it's hard. And I was lucky. I did a lot of that building before kids. Mm-hmm. If I had started now with kids, it'd be a whole different story. And I get that.
Absolutely.
So to do it with like I said, everyone's circumstances are different, but again, it doesn't mean I also work harder now knowing like I've got mouths to feed and, things like
Absolutely.
that. So it does give another level of motivation and a little bit less sleep, stuff like
Yeah.
that, but make it
Yeah.
work. And
Yes,
whatever your
right.
situation, like just get after it.
Yeah.
Is, what I think people should do listening at home kind of thing.
Right. So you said you're a big man of faith. What brought, and I know, in Milton Hershey, they tried to, we always went to chapel and things like
Right.
that, but I know they didn't want to push that, push faith on us too much. When was it, do you think that you started to rely more on your faith and just become more
Yeah.
embedded and grounded in your faith?
So my mom was a big Catholic growing up. She always made me go to second church, CCD, all
Yeah.
that. It's like almost like not quite resented it, but like it was a burden, right? It was like a
Yeah.
chore.
Yeah.
And so back then it was like a whole different experience. And so when I left, I went to church maybe Easter and Christmas, like that was it. Like, and I kind of like went, not like I rebelled. I just, it wasn't top of mind. I always kind of like, it always was there, right? Like it was
Right.
always there. It's not like I stopped praying entirely kind of thing or like,
Yeah.
but obviously I did a lot of bad things, right? Like
Yeah.
I indulged in Miami a lot. I'll leave it
Yeah.
at that. And really, but I was always a nice person. Always cared about other people. I was never a dick.
Yeah.
I was never like rude to people or anything like that. I
Yeah.
always was still grounded in being a nice person. I just had a little too much fun, things like that.
Yeah.
So, but it didn't really until I kind of like I said, moved from Miami, like got into Charlotte, and then like kind of even like probably a year or two after being here, I just started. I don't know. I just kind of like reemerged and like I just kind of like started listening more to church podcasts or watching online, or when I would go to California, I'd go with my sister, and she had a really good church with a really good pastor who I loved, and like a lot of his sermons resonated with me, and it's just something that kind of like, and then all of a sudden I found myself just reading more devotions. I think really I kind of hit. What also did is I almost kind of hit like an emotional like rock bottom. Like I realized I was just broken in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Like I said, I had a lot of this surface level because most people that would know me would never know I went through this crisis sense. And like, because on the surface, it looked like I was crushing and doing really well, and like happy go lucky, outgoing, all that kind of stuff. And like, but inside I was just like broken. I was just lost. And really like, I remember one time being in California, I just like kind of like was with, my sister, and like, she was like, mentioning, she's like, I'm concerned about you, like you don't look as healthy, you look like, drink a lot, when you're like you just like something's off, and like and I just kind of like started crying one day, and it was like sobbing, like damn, like I just kind of like let it go. I'm like, I kind of like, because she had kind of hinted before, but like she kind of was like, it was almost like a dude, wake up,
right? And
I remember just like losing it, and I don't know if that was the moment when everything turned around, because I still did some, still took me a little bit of like stumbling, and like it wasn't really bottom kind of thing, but I remember like that moment of like, dude, like what is wrong with you? And I think a lot of his stuff I never really dealt with from growing up, like the Milt Hershey stuff, or like my family life and things like that, and so like I said, there was just this huge void, and I think part of the healing of it was moving here and like again getting back with the woman who's my wife, and like so that was a big part of healing, passion was over, then just finding getting back to like to faith. And so I'm not really Catholic now. I mean, we got married in a Catholic church. My oldest is baptized. My youngest will probably be baptized in Catholic church too, just because I like the tradition of it. But I'm more of a non-denominational Christian, right? And so, like I said, I just think so much of it. It's just really like, I mean, again, just praying every day and like reading devotion, things like that. Listening to sermons, it's just made a huge impact and like helped me become more grounded, have more hope, have more faith, have more. And the other thing was just. Really, the other thing was not only just like the rock bottom of this void, it was how many times, like I said before, where I was at negative money, like overdraft fees, how many times like I would literally be forced to have nothing else to do but beg God. Please, Lord, please, like begging. And I'm so dumb. It took me hundreds of times in a sense, hundreds of times getting back to that moment, doing the same mistakes, getting back to, negative money. And like having to beg again, and every time 100 times over, I'd beg and plead, and he'd answer. And like I'm like, if you need more proof than that, like you're an idiot. And like and so like I said, it was just constant proof, and like showing up, and like him, the Lord, showing up so many times when I didn't deserve it and didn't wasn't worthy and didn't need it, that it just like it brought it home. And I get that other people are. Whatever faith it is, I think it's And I get that, not everyone's a Christian and things like that, but for me, it works. And like, I mean, again, like to me, I've just had enough proof and, that it's just like absolutely changed my life. And, despite being so, like I said, just doing so many things that like aren't worthy of being blessed. And yet every time I get blessed,
Isn't that
and like,
funny?
it's just wild. Yeah.
Yeah. I always believe that. And it's funny because it happens to us too, with me and Chris in our life. And I always grew up Muslim. I mean, devout Muslim, prayed 5 times a day, ultimately all through college, got made fun of for it. And I was so devout. And then at some point through college, I just kind of lost that connection. It was just kind of like, I'm praying. Life is horrific. We had like a horrible family tragedy. And it just was like, why are you doing this? Like, I'm praying to you 5 times a day for all these years now. And this is how you are treating my family. It was just such a disconnect. And I didn't feel like, even when I was praying, that there was any sort of like comfort, peace, nothing that came from it. It was very much like ritual and get it done. And I must do this, otherwise I can't go to sleep. So I just kind of left faith altogether. I mean, I believed in God, but I just was like, I'm not dealing with any religion, and I'm just going to take a break. And for years I took a big break. Then Chris and I met, and he wasn't like a practicing Christian, but his mom was a very devout Christian, and she had gone through so much, and cancer twice, multiple sclerosis. I mean, this woman has gone through it, and God brought her through no matter what. With like, her stories are crazy. She wrote a book. Wow. And I would hear all these things through Chris, and we got engaged, we got married, and still, even through the marriage and ceremony, I told him we could do it non-denominational. I don't push your religion on me. I'm not going to push anything on you or anything like that. I was even okay with, hey, once we have kids, since you're more religious than me, they can be Christian. I don't mind.
Right.
Don't push too much of that on me, And as we got into, because I was in entrepreneurship with my brother, Al, and I had a distribution company for 7 years. So I was on the go 90 hours a week. I had zero life. I mean, we were in China 3 months out of the year, zero life. And Chris was a restaurant manager for like 5-6 years. So then in 2014, Chris had been telling me, like, I love that you're in business with your brother, and I think it's awesome. But now that, we're married and we want to pursue our life, why don't we figure out what we're going to do together, like a business we can own together, And we started thinking about that, and financial services came into birth, and we were like, okay, finance, great. That's a great thing. So we started our little business together. And at that same time, Chris was like, well, because of the struggle of entrepreneurship and now doing it, it's a struggle with family, let alone a struggle with your partner,
Oh yeah.
So we were struggling in our marriage. It was just very hard to be business partners and newly married and all of that. So he was like, I want to start to go to church. I want to kind of work on myself from within, And he's like, you're more than welcome to come. And I told him, yeah, I'll come. But again, don't have them try to, convert me or any of that. I'm just going to come to support you, and I'll get some self-development out of it, And we had been going to that church for like a year and a half. And then somehow and during this time, I had been praying to God in my own head for years after, like, I disconnected, like, hey, I am lost. I don't know where I'm supposed to be right now. I kind of am resentful towards you, but I feel lost. I'm in the dark. I need you to find me, send me a rope, send me a sign, send me something, because I do need a purpose or somewhere to feel home again,
Right.
I had always prayed that to myself, never told Chris about it, a little bit too prideful to even talk to him about. I don't know why. It's a sense of like embarrassment even.
Right, of course.
So the pastor one day, he was doing like an altar call. He always did an altar call, but then this day he just kept on and on, like 15 minutes. And like, you guys can go ahead and go home if you need to. I know I'm going long, but there's someone in the room right now who's been asking for a rope, asking for a sign. You're in the dark, and this is your rope. He wants you to come grab it. And I'm like, oh my God, like, the words I was saying. And even now I say it kind of gives me chills up my neck, because it was the exact words. And he had never said that in any other altar call he had done. But it was like, you're in the dark, and here's the rope, and here's your sign, and you want to be found, and you're lost. And I'm like, what the heck? So I'm like, okay. And in embarrassment, because I'm like, I don't want Chris or anyone to think I'm doing this for them, you know?
Right, right.
But it was just like, okay, I got to make a move, because otherwise God might as well just slap me in the face for me to
Right.
finally get it, you know? So I went
Yeah.
out and I was like, okay, well, tell me what I need to do. And they were like, you know, say this and you're saved. And I'm like, great. But then I knew, like, okay, this was probably a moment of spiritualness and I'm in the moment, but it just like anything else, it's going to take work.
Exactly.
So much work. And there are times where I would go back and I'm like, this isn't for me anymore. Or people in church get on my nerves, or church itself was like too human with all the human things that happen in church.
Right.
And it would like bring me back to like, Christianity's horrible. And Chris would always be like, babe, you can't, humans are always going to mess up.
Religion is
going to be, yeah.
rough. I agree.
Yeah. Yeah.
Religion sucks in a lot of
very
ways.
rough. Yeah. And a lot of times people will take like how people are, or like how people represent it as that's what the religion is.
Oh, yeah.
Or like the faith is. I don't even like to call it a religion. Like,
well, a lot of religious people are assholes, right? They're not.
Yeah,
they don't live that life. So like Christians
they're
got a bad
religious.
name.
Yeah.
You know, Islam has a bad name because of people misconstrue Jews. Everyone, right? Like,
Yes.
people take it out of context. So yeah,
Yeah.
I don't blame you for thinking that, because I think that still to this day, a
Yeah.
lot of Christians give other Christians a bad name.
It is. It's humanity. It's just
Right.
it's human nature that we
For sure.
do this, and we were never supposed to be the right representation for such a belief or faith.
Exactly.
Because
Right.
we're human. We were made to sin. You know, we were
Right.
made to fuck up. But it
Oh, yeah.
was like you said. It was like my constant belief, because as like a coming from Islam and then coming into Christianity, it's a constant like battle of like, okay, the devil trying to bring you back, like, no, you're not going to go this way. I'm going to bring you back into the dark. But it's those moments of when we were in complete despair, when we literally were like, oh my God. I mean, we were negative. I think I even posted it. Like when we first moved to Pennsylvania, we started our whole thing all over, and we were negative like $600, $800. And I'm like, I have a baby now. Like I am so stressed out and so this. And then the next day, like $6,000 would be coming in and all this stuff. And I'm like, and Chris would always, he had such, he has this level of faith that is like so inspiring. It's almost like sometimes when I'm losing my faith comes from his faith.
Right.
And when I see it happening, like you said, money falling from the sky, it's like, why is God so good to us? And then it renews it all over again.
Oh yeah.
It's crazy. So I do think that no matter what religion you belong to, you need that level of faith in something to keep going in those moments of when you feel like you don't know where the fuck you're going to get the next step from.
Oh yeah. I mean, you're absolutely right. Like, and I think you go through that to get you to that point.
Yeah.
Like go through all the, like, and even then, even like, that's the other thing is like, you don't just become a Christian or whatever, convert, like you're like, it's easy street. Like it is never easy street. And I think that's what people think all the time. Like you're never, ever going to be on the easy street for the rest of your life. So get over it. Like, accept it. Like it doesn't get easier because you're, a Christian, you start reading the Bible every day, you go through the motions. Like it only this brings other struggles. Like to get you there, like again, I just got beat down. Like, he beat me down to countless times. Right.
Yeah.
And I think, but again, like at the same time, like, and that's the other thing is at the same, even though I'm a lot further along in it and like, on my way back than I was, I still feel like I have a long way to go. And like, and it's just like something you'll be working over the next 100 years. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm cool with that. And I'm more comfortable with that. And the other thing is, even like being a person of faith doesn't mean you don't like, and this is another interesting thing in that, a lot of times, because like, being a man too, maybe this is Chris, maybe not, but I will on the outside look calm, cool, steady, confident, but on the inside is a freaking storm raging, man. And like, I'm like, I can't even tell you how many times, even like as I've been, like I said, even now I have my moments, right? Where like, not quite freakouts, but like where I'm pacing around at 2 a.m., like, like or walking outside or like whatever, or like, go down these spirals and like, they still happen. Like, doesn't matter. And again, more money doesn't change that, right? More, a bigger business doesn't change that, you still have those setbacks. So it's like one of those things where work on it, get better at it, but like, like I said, it's not like, I don't want to come from a place like, oh, I made it, like it's all
Right.
easy. Like, no, it's still,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
yeah. So, but as a good husband, sometimes it is good to hide those feelings or like that and give that, or wife at the same time, give that kind of confidence to give someone else your faith. But then there's other times where you just got to be like, all right, I'm freaking out and here's why. And like, what do we do? Make it a team. So
yeah, absolutely. It is. It takes a lot of that teamwork, because sometimes you're down and then your spouse you need that energy from your spouse to lift you back up again, and then vice versa.
Oh yeah. All the time.
Yeah, it's so great that you guys have that too, that connection.
And
What does
likewise.
your wife do now? Is she still in television?
No, she gave that up when she moved here. She works for a healthcare company called HM Health, and so she does public relations and communications. So and she's been doing that since I moved here. Really, she had got the job right before I moved here.
Nice.
And so she still will do camera stuff, but she's more like running it for other people, facilitating interviews and things like that, and like setting up videos. She works with media, but just behind the camera mostly. Yeah. And tells stories of, she works for like their children's hospital, their cancer institute, and she's worked with a few different like departments over the years. But that's what she does. So she loves it.
Nice.
She gets to tell like, uplifting stories a lot of times. Stories of hope, stuff like that.
That's great. That's really great. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're really doing such great big things. It's such an inspiration. I love seeing stuff like that.
Appreciate it.
We need more of that, more of your stories, more of, the motivation, the inspiration, the belief. You just doing what you're doing and the grit that you have to just keep putting one foot in front of the other. That is, and then people hearing that story is going to change so many people. I know it. I feel it in my bones. I really do.
Oh, I texted you when we were setting this up. I'm like, for a long time, I didn't tell anybody. Like, in Miami, even, I finally wrote a bit about my story a few years, like probably 2 or 3 years ago, and it was really well received. But like, for my whole time, like, no one knew I would like about Milt and Hershey. No one knew, anything about my family, where I came from. Like, I don't know if it was shame or like just I wanted to just be a different person, right, and like just invent some character. But like, a long time I didn't tell that story, and like when I started sharing it, oh my gosh, the way people receive it, and even my wife. She's like, when you told me about, because even the first time we dated, she didn't know anything about my history background. And so she's like, when I learned about who you really are and where you came from, like that made me fall in love with you way more. Like that changed everything. And so, and I've got that so much. So like, I think that's another thing that a lot of times we, as Milts, it's, again, you just carry a level of shame for some reason, right? I mean, just whatever, you have a single parent or you're poor, whatever, right? From the hood. I mean, I was lived in the hood and the trailer park. Like, when I was around rich people in Miami, like that's, saying that is like a whole foreign thing to these people with trust funds and like, insanely like, absurdly rich. Like my friends there were like crazy rich. Like, so it's like almost like you couldn't even relate. Like, and, but again, the people that I did share with and told them and like, confided in, it's just like, I mean, it just made way deeper and more sincere relationships. And it changed the way people perceive me. And like I said, a lot of people, I think, even to this day that haven't heard that stuff, think I'm just some spoiled kid that like, or like just like silver spoon or like, one of these. And obviously in the South, there's a lot of, I don't know, like yuppie gentlemen. And like, I think people just think, just have this impression that's misconstrued and like, again, sometimes I just let it be because whatever, who cares, right? But I think now it's way more important though to share like, no matter where you come from, no matter what your story looks like, you can do anything. Literally anything. And I think I'm, again, like I said, I'm not Jeff Bezos yet, but like, at least for someone who's just starting out, to see someone that, obviously to aspire to like that level of people and Bill Gates and, Michael Jordan, so like at least to see someone like that's on the path, I think I wish I had more of that too growing up, right? And seeing like what it takes to get there. And people, I think what you're doing of telling people in the middle of the journey who are like far from made it yet.
Right.
And this is like, I have a blog too, like I share stories like this of like people in the middle, like in the shit, like still grinding. And, like, haven't made it yet. You might be a middle manager on your way to being, a CEO or like maybe an entrepreneur, or you may be whatever. Like I want to tell more of those stories because like,
because that's
I want to inspire people.
A lot of people, it's almost like they they misconstrued what entrepreneurship really is. They underestimate it. So a lot of people get
Sure.
into entrepreneurship and then they're like, oh shit, this is not what I thought. And then
Right.
they don't go through it. And it's a big underestimation. I mean, I think for sure when, my brother invited me to come work with him in California, I was just like, yeah, this will be fun. And then I was like, oh my gosh, like we have no life. Like we made great money, but not even 1 hour to enjoy any of the money that we were making.
Right.
We were like hamsters in a wheel.
Oh yeah.
And people don't understand, like it's years and years and years of like building
Oh
before
yeah.
you can even take a break and enjoy all of those years that you've been building. It
Oh,
takes
it's so
so much time. What I want to eventually implement is like a mentor system. You said at one point you had a mentor,
oh yeah.
and I'm sure you've had plenty in your journey,
Oh yeah.
but I'd love to implement like a mentor system with the current Milts in Milton Hershey, where like maybe from 9th grade on to graduation, they're able to link up with another alumni who literally is just a pen pal.
Right.
Obviously it's all virtual now, but just like a constant voice in that
You
person.
need that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you have to have it. I think that's what would help change a lot of people's lives, like especially in high school, like to get prepared for it. Like I think it'd be a great idea, and I think
and even all through college.
Yeah, all right, and then even after, like I mean, I still feel like I have. I mean, again, obviously, I'm young. I'm 34 in 2 days. Like I mean, you could be 80 and still need mentors, right?
Absolutely.
And coaches.
Exactly.
And so like this is not something you ever stop, but then also
Right.
you should be mentoring other people along the way
Yes.
too. And like, it kind of flows and like, so it's just one thing where I think you tend to like stop thinking of yourself as needing a mentor or coach at times, or like at least that, not everyone feels that way, but I think a lot of people tend to, because they want to be a know-it-all, or like they want to perceive that they're a know-it-all.
Right.
And, it's just such a disservice because, like, again, like I said, that for me, having that guidance, I mean, from multiple people, but one in particular, like, it's just absolutely life-changing. And so I think I'd love to be a mentor in this program. I'd love to.
Yeah, I do. I'm definitely working on trying to implement something like that, because I think that would be great. I know what a mentor did for me, and I just know what it can do for kids. I mean, we had advisors and stuff like that helped us, choose a school or something, but it's different than an advisor. Like having an actual mentor, close in age almost, but different, just someone you're connecting to who's just, I personally want to have mentors who specifically talk to people about entrepreneurship. I'm a firm believer in entrepreneurship. Like, I know for a fact, my daughter, she's only 3 now, but I already know she's not going to college. Like, for what?
Yeah.
Like
it's something I'm open-minded to, that college may
not even exist when
I'm even trying to tell my wife, like, a K through 12 traditional program may not be right. Is that the best way? I mean, I'm open-minded to the school system that's worked for the past 100 years.
Right.
Very much built on, and again, not to knock our lovely teachers and people in education space, they do a great job. But I feel like that was built to build factory workers, right? People that follow the rules.
It has not evolved, and it's no shot to them, but it hasn't evolved. The curriculum has not evolved.
Why do you have to go to one school that all year round? Like, why can't you go to multiple schools and live in multiple cities? Or like, there's just, I think you can rethink this whole thing. Yeah. I know that may not be what Milton Hershey wants to hear, but I'm just saying, like, I'm just open-minded to that whole system being able to, like you said, not even just college. For me, it's like, if I'm not teaching my kid, again, I'm even now trying to, like, simple things of, like, instill business mindset. Like, we didn't learn accounting or taxes or any of that kind of stuff going on. I think it's to learn things like just problem solving, not as necessarily just like, like that's what life's about, solving problems and again, building relationships and stuff, things that like don't quite make it into the classroom necessarily. Then again, there's a lot of benefits, don't get me wrong, like being around people your age.
The social aspect.
A lot of benefits and structure. Kids need structure, but I do think things could be different. And whether, I also don't necessarily think college system will look like it is now when our kids are there. I think I saw a meme the other day where it's like, colleges are trying to convince kids that online education is just as good and worth the same price. And then in the
Right.
fall, they got to convince them to come back wanting like,
Right.
so they're literally like contradicting themselves over the next year.
Yes.
And I don't envy being in that position, but
Yeah.
I feel like things got way out of hand though.
Yeah. Yeah.
The
And honestly,
price, the value,
everything. And I feel like I can, and I don't want to ever come off like I'm bashing any sort of, obtaining of education, but at the same time, I feel like I have a place of speaking because I have 2 master degrees. So, and for what really? I mean, I got my master degrees in the midst of working with my brother, and we were already, during the second one, I was already in entrepreneurship. So I don't really know why I did it. I think a lot of it was that belief that like, okay, if I ever want to stop doing this, then I have these degrees and then I can go get hired somewhere. And I think that did happen at one point with my brother. Like my husband and I had been trying to have kids and we were having such a hard time. And I know it was the stress of me working so much. So I was like, maybe I'll take a break and then I'll go get a job at a university and become a professor.
Right.
And this was after the second master's degree. So I went to university and I started applying to different places and I got a couple interviews. And the amount of money they wanted to pay me was just so like, I mean, are you guys kidding me right now? Is this what all this schooling was for? It was just like such a huge eye opener that I was just like, yeah, this is just, why did I do this? Like, great. I have the degrees. Awesome. Literally they're sitting, I don't know if you could see it, but they're that's all they are. They sit there in the corner on my wall. Like,
I think any industry,
that's about it. Yeah. I didn't really implement any of that stuff in entrepreneurship, but
I think it goes back to where entrepreneurship matters. Like every industry, right? If you're getting upset by this conversation, you're part of the problem in that everyone can be better and operate better and the structure better. Whether you're a teacher, whether you're a doctor, I think doctors get so upset these days because everyone's questioning certain things. It's like plenty of doctors lied, right? Or like plenty of doctors are really, really good. And like for every profession, plenty of teachers are great, plenty are not so good. Plenty of politicians are not so great and some are good. It's like for everything, the system can be improved upon, right? No matter what it is, whatever, if you're selling widgets, if you're making coffee, like to think that your thing is just perfect and can't be improved upon, I think is silly. And that's where entrepreneur comes in, where education is something that hasn't really been improved upon much.
Right. It has not evolved.
It's not to the level of, that it should be. And so it's something that people should be open-minded. And again, like I said, if you're really reluctant to change, I mean, it's just, you got a rude awakening coming because like the world is going to keep changing. And like the jobs that exist now were not the jobs that exist 20 years ago. And the jobs that exist 20 years from now likely will not even be things today. So like, I think you got to embrace a bit more of that and try to be part of the solution, right? Like, I mean, if you're a teacher right now and like, teach third grade, whatever, like what does the teaching third grade look like in 10 years? And like, why just, and I get that a lot of times, like you said, even with your university opportunities, the compensation doesn't always quite encourage that or like enable that. And I get that's another travesty in and of itself, but it's one of those things where like everything can and should be improved upon.
Absolutely.
Right? No matter what
And
it is.
I think this pandemic it's forcing people to finally see that. And forcing every industry, education, travel industry, hotels, restaurants, I mean, real estate, everything is changing. And it's very forceful now. People are telling us left and right, like, oh my God, I'm not really sure what to do. But that's like the whole, I think, and then that's where faith comes in too, because I think once God sees that, like, okay, this world has become stagnant and people are reluctant now to change. They've gotten so comfortable and so fearful.
It forces it.
Let me shake everything up now. I think everyone needed a waker-upper.
Yeah. And so like, to me, I truly believe, like, obviously there's a lot of pain going on right now. There's a lot of like, a lot of bad things, right? And I get that a lot of people can't see past that, which is an unfortunate problem of itself. And like, not to say like, to not be all opportunistic right now means you're a victim or anything like that, but like there's different mindsets people have, right? And like, to me, this could be the best thing to ever happen to your life.
Yeah.
Like I'm 52 days now into not having a drink, not having any sugar. I've been working out twice a day.
Wow.
Like I've been on a full-blown revolutionary change. And like,
wow.
I wouldn't do that normally because I have to go out to networking events. I have to go to lunch meetings. I have to so I wouldn't be able to, to me, I'm like all in on like getting better during this.
Yeah.
I get that everyone's like that. I've been working literally like more than ever. I've been fortunate that my business is still growing and but I've like not been on Netflix benders like a lot of other people. And like,
yeah.
And not to say there's a problem with that, because some of these people needed to take that vacation and that mental break, right? Some people needed the opposite of what I needed, of like getting better. Some people needed to chill.
Yes,
and and that's cool, but I think that's a case-by-case basis. But I would say me graduating college in 2008 changed my career forever, my life, my perspective forever, in the sense of like, it molded me for the better, because it stuck with me to this day. Like I never went, again, I lived like that. And I think a lot of people that kind of came out of that, the other side of that, it stuck with us for a decade plus. Like, so even this recovery that we were supposedly on was a stock market thing. A lot of people in the middle class are like not even like trying to become middle class.
Right. Never really recovered. Yeah.
We didn't shake that. Right. And so we might have started spending more money on dumb shit, but like, I don't think mentally that stuck with me. And I think it's important that this unsettling, feeling, this, sense of like, the fleeting nature of like our luxury in our life. Because I mean, even in America, even as bad as people think they have it here, you look elsewhere, like it's just not even close. You are freaking still the top 1% of the world. Like for the most part.
Absolutely.
Like even if you're in poverty here, like you still have it so good that most people don't quite see that. And like, so I do think you should have that feeling of like urgency and that feeling of like that nothing is not like that you shouldn't feel comfortable or content in a sense, but like you can't quite rest on like, just the economy going up, your house price going up. You got to stay hungry. Like you got to stay, you're either getting better, you're getting worse. I think that it's important to try and take the positive out of this. And I get that it's probably sounds insensitive to a lot of people who whose world has been rocked. And I get they may like look at me now like you're an asshole, or some people might be like, you're absolutely right. Or some people, hopefully this is like the wake up call to like, that they looked at it that way until now. And like, hope maybe I can like, get through to some of like,
absolutely
change that perspective. But it could be the best opportunity ever. And depending, and sometimes your whole house has to get burned down, or you got to hit rock bottom to be that catalyst to like get better. And you got to be Jordan, get like the last dance, Jordan getting cut from his high school team or whatever, to like then go on to that, which is the worst thing ever to happen, or losing to the Pistons and the worst thing ever happened to me. Oh my God. And then, he comes back and goes there. Like, you need to take those L's to like be worthy of the wins on the other end.
It's true. It's funny. It's, I always said God has a sense of humor, and he does. Like he
sometimes sick one, but
like sometimes you're like, what were you thinking? But then it'll play out like later and you're like, oh my God, this is miraculous thinking, but that's when people say God is amazing. It's in those things when you can look back at situations and be like, oh my God, that horrific tragedy was what gave birth to this beautiful thing, like in our family, we had a horrible tragedy happen in 2002, right after I graduated. And my brother Al was actually studying to be a doctor. He was in medical school, and he had to drop out just to go fix what was happening in our family. And that then led him into becoming an entrepreneur. Otherwise, he would have been a doctor who was at the hospital's beck and call every single day, and probably would have lived a very stressful type of life. But because of that tragedy, then his whole life has shifted. It's crazy. It's crazy. So that's that sense of humor that's like, oh, okay, funny, but not funny.
Exactly.
Not funny at the time, but funny now.
Right. So true.
So tell me, before I let you go, I have 2 questions. The first is, if you were to give your high school self advice, what would that advice be?
All right. It would be, I think I did a decent job, but not good enough of us like seizing the day every day. And like, I definitely, shot my shot with, plenty of things that like I'm grateful for. And like I said, I wouldn't change too much because I'm happy with where I'm at. But like, so, kind of like butterfly effect thing where I wouldn't want to change too much. But I would just try harder, be way more serious about instilling proper discipline and like, just being, just take things a little bit more seriously, as well as, I think I, would still have fun like I did, but like be more just mindful of the future and like how your actions then translate later, and so, and just how everything compounds on itself. And so I think, and I mean, yeah, I think that's really what it would just be: seize more opportunities, seize the day, be like, really embrace it, and make the most of every moment.
Yeah.
And like I said, I think I did a decent job, pretty good. Like I had a great high school career at the Mill, but like, there's things I could have done better for sure, sure. So, and also just really be more open-minded about the world, and like, really think about the future more than, than winging it. And I think I winged it a little bit, which, like I said, can be good and bad, but.
Yeah, well, that's good. That's good advice. Definitely great advice not to wing it, because a lot of us just kind of go in stumbling into the next day. And that's a muscle to be able to constantly be thinking ahead and thinking about the next move, and that's definitely a muscle.
Oh yeah, it's hard.
And I didn't learn that
earlier.
until late either. Yeah. Second question: what does being a Milt really mean to you?
Oh man, it's a loaded question. It's like I said, and that meaning, what it's meant has evolved a lot over the years. Like I said, at one point it was a bit of a, and which is weird because I had, like I said, a great experience, but at one point it was a bit of shame. It was a bit of like, of just being self-conscious. It was, it was like a lot of like pain, and even though just because like, why me, at the beginning. And like I said, when I made that shift then of like, oh, it get like almost like I got picked instead of like I got this curse. It was like, like I got lucky, right? I felt Aladdin, like, at the diamond in the rough kind of shit. And like, you know what I mean? Like it was just like this. And I think when it's funny, my wife and I kind of make that joke, like I used to be a straight bad.
That's awesome.
And so I think making, what it means now is like, again, just it's overcoming struggle. It's overcoming, it's starting out, like I said, in a bad place, and then getting this incredible opportunity. And it's just like being, hitting the lottery after having lost it, kind of thing, like starting out bad and then kind of that change to good. And it's a brotherhood, sisterhood, it's a family. Like I said, I think now, we were talking about this before. I think for a long time I kind of turned my back on it. Now I really want to go back and be more involved and just help more people, just whether it's students or alumni and both, and be more of like rebuild that community, my relationships there. I think it's an incredible community, incredible opportunity. Like I said, it's just this absolutely insane blessing that like we don't always take, that we sometimes take for granted and we don't always appreciate. I don't know, I'm like saying a lot of different words, but like really if I boil it all down, it's just like, it's winning the lottery. Like, and again, from where I started, it was just life-changing. It's just put me on this insane trajectory that like I've achieved. And like, I've already, at this point, I'm 34 and I've already surpassed, or almost, and surpassed my wildest dreams. Like really what I thought already. And like, I wouldn't have done that without the relationships there, the experiences there. And like, it's changed everything. And like I said, now when I look back, it's just like, I'm grateful. And really it's a ton of gratitude. And I wish, you could impart that to other people who are there now. And I wish you could almost go back to the people who didn't make the most of it and like really snap your fingers and kind of give them that feeling. But I think that's what's the beautiful thing of it too, is like, it's like you just wasted on the young, right? Like, it's kind of like those things, and you don't know what you got till it's gone, all those cliches, but that are true. And, so the Mill is like, forever be in my heart. I got a tattoo of like, the Spartan on my ribs. I redid my logo, actually. This is kind of funny that I think is perfect for this podcast, perfect timing. And it's got like the Spartan, helmet, sword, like shield, and everything.
Wow.
Because of like the Spartan, and again, I didn't always, it's just like that place makes you into a warrior, like if you let it and if you seize it. And like the reason I become just a hard worker and so much grit and like being resilient, like and at the same time not feeling sorry for myself much, right? Other than maybe a few fleeting moments, is because of that, of that, that experience. And so
It's true.
It means enough to me that, like I said, I'm kind of going back to my roots and like reminding myself of where I came from a lot more through tattoos, through my logo and things like that. And it's also becoming of where I want to go, and like, you know, that trying to take the good things of it from the school and the lessons learned there.
Absolutely. That's so good. That's so good. Thank you so much for doing this, Mike. I appreciate it.
It's awesome. I know we rambled.
So
Hopefully it's like a movie, so hopefully people have the attention span to kind of.
Well, they better. And if they don't, then it's their problem, because they would be missing out big time, big time. And if I ever do get this whole mentorship thing up and running, you are going to be definitely one of the first mentors I want on that list. That's for sure.
I'd love to, for sure.
Sure. So before I let you go, shout out any website, any handles, anything like that, where people can reach out, follow you.
All right.
Whatever it is, shout it out.
All right. So my company website's WIMS Consulting, WIMS -consulting. The non-hyphen works now. I got that later. So WIMS Consulting is my website for my company. We're doing the Eolian VR one too. That's another one, eolianvr.com. My main social media, I use LinkedIn. LinkedIn I love, like, by the way, like absolutely any entrepreneur needs LinkedIn to go all in on it. Like, it's incredible. Get a company page, all that stuff. Even if you're not an entrepreneur, like, that to me is where a lot happens, right? A lot of business comes from. So I've got LinkedIn. I think my / is Mike Simmons 305. My Instagram is my other, like, next biggest. I love Instagram. WIMS 305, WIMS 305. Still got the Miami number, like, you know, still representing. So WIMS 305 on my Instagram is like a place I just share a lot of my story, my day-to-day, what it's like, share a lot of baby pictures, a lot of, you know, adventures and misadventures, and what I've got going on. That's really like a main hub. And of course, you know, I still do Facebook, a little bit less. It's gotten a little tough, but so Instagram and LinkedIn are my two big ones, and so that's where you'll really find me. And then of course I link from, you know, as a good marketer should, link to all my other ones from there. So like that's where you start, and you'll find me everywhere else from there.
Right. Too. Nice. Awesome.
But the other thing is, any Milt, I mean, like I said, on one hand, yes, I'm scaling to go after big old companies, you know, and 100-person law firms and stuff like that. But at the same time, I've always got time for Milts, always got time to impart advice, give a little, whatever, you know, share a little wisdom, brainstorm a little bit. So like, this is definitely an open invitation to reach out to me. I may need a couple days sometimes to like get it on the calendar, but you know, like you've seen, when a cool opportunity comes, like, you know, you can move mountains, and like, I mean, you know, to make this happen, you know, we put it together pretty quick. So definitely always got time for you know, a brand new entrepreneur, or even wherever you are in the path. If I can help you out, maybe out.
That's so good. Thank you so much, Mike. I really appreciate that.
Of course.
I'm gonna stop. Well, why don't you say peace to everybody? Why don't you say bye to everybody?
All right. Thank you guys, everyone. Good luck. Stay safe, like everyone's told you. I'm not going to tell you to wash your hands or any of that crap. But good luck. And like I said, I hope, you know, I hope nothing but the best, and wish nothing but good things for all of you, all you fellow Milts.